So it's very interesting, Ravi, that you brought up hybrid spaces as an idea, and I was thinking about this because Cosima specializes in doing hospitality. We all call him the king of hotels, no? So, Cosima, what do you feel? Hotels as public buildings having multivalency, having a hybrid sensibility, especially in what is happening today, and being relevant through time. The entire sense of using a hotel and the entire program of the hotel itself as a public building is changing. So, and you've been doing it for like 30 years. So, what do you feel about it?
So, Rudraksh, before I address to what you have asked me, in particularly to the hospitality, I would like to add a little bit to what has been happening, what discussion has been transpiring earlier. So, if you look at any of the metropolitans urban setup, you find that there is one which are fundamentally required over there, and there is a supporting population which is required along with it, which is
Yeah.
leading to those juga jopadies and other environments which are created in each and every metropolitan. Now, urban in an urban environment. Now, this is what has happened is that becomes a source of revenue, and that is what is attracting them here. If if you look at the current pandemic situation, where our situations are so grim that today we can't even sit 6 feet away from table to table and discuss this. We are having it virtual. So that human interface is getting out of this, and this is something which is very uh, uh, something which I at least don't like, that missing of that human interface with each other. So I have a I feel that the old school thought of decentralizing everything is a very essential thing. And uh, why it is very essential that if you have something, we can really solve all the problems, automobile problems, other things. So there has to be a, like, what is called as smart city. We haven't seen any of them growing in last couple of years, which we have been talking about, but we haven't seen an actual model of it being developed, and developed to a model to an urban level. It is what is happening is like a ghetto communities which are probably in 50 acres, 100 acres, which are coming, but they are not actually the right model for the smart cities. Creating 100 residential building and 2 commercial buildings and 1 shopping mall is not the right way to put it across. We need to develop all kind of infrastructure over there, and that decentralization will help us in a much more bigger way in the future, and it will, in such situation of this pandemic situation, which I keep on feeling that, see, variations of variations of this kind of viruses which are going to keep on coming, and these are going to, if we are going to keep on getting into lockdown situation, we will have no life as such. I think so we are killing ourselves by sitting at home at one point of time. If you think other way around, we are only doing good to the environment, but we are killing ourselves also. So we need to bring in much more better infrastructure in order to do that. As far as hospitality is concerned, my strongest feeling is that if we decentralize everything and try and bring some mixed use environment into hospitality, it will be a great thing. Because what is currently happening is, I'll tell you, these projects are all revenue based, and the biggest challenge is that the real estate in any urban environment is very expensive. Apart from real estate, at this point of time, the kind of FSI, the rules and regulations which are required, which are governing the complete urban fabric and urban development, they are also very expensive. So probably FSI cost is much more higher than any other place. Now, if we are going to, if we can't sustain that project, I think so people are not going to get good environment. What is required is not those 5-star luxury hotels. I don't mean to say that is not irrelevant and that is not required, but we require basic fundamental infrastructure of hospitality of 3 and 4 star, and that is something which today, if you look at the numbers and room nights available in India and in Las Vegas, probably we are equivalent. Probably we might be couple of rooms shorter than even Las Vegas. So just try and imagine that is so many huge inventory is required. Our airports are growing. Our infrastructure in terms of connectivity, in terms of in air connectivity, rail connectivity, those road connectivities, they are all improving. And so people are likely to travel. Likely to travel means you need to create uh, more, I think so, more center or urban developments, smaller size urban developments all across the India rather than doing one large, concentrating on large metropolitan city. We need to decentralize that. We need to literally decentralize that. And hospitality building, it becomes much more viable if we change the area program from only being a hotel building, if we change it to a mixed use development, because that can give the developer a right approach. He makes money out of it from the real estate development or other developments, and he invests into hotel, which is a very, because hotel ROIs they don't break even for probably a decade or so, and that is a very deep pocket investment which is there. Now if somebody is going to do that, and if he's not going to make money out of it, it's going to be a real big problem. It's a real big challenge. So we need to look into it in a different perspective, rather than just making popping up hotels somewhere near the airports and all those kind of, those are essential ones. Probably I think so Ravi himself must be doing a couple of them. If they are handling, if he's handling Goa, then probably there are 5 hotels which are coming in there. So
Yeah.
so those are essential ones, but they are not part. Airports are not. They are attached to urban areas, but they are not actually in urban areas. Most of the
Right.
airports, except
But
few of
tell me
those old
something.
ones.
But tell me something. If decentralization, if we pick decentralization up as a uniform philosophy, then city center, the CBD, the iconic downtown, the hierarchy of structure in space, where you have a primary congregational space of the city bifurcating into secondary spaces, bifurcating into tertiary spaces, their level of isn't it going to become like standard communities? Isn't it going to become like very I don't know. Swapnil might be able to explain us better at a urban design guideline level whether decentralization like this for a vision of a city or a vision of a city for the future of 2040 would be like.
Yeah, Rudraksh, I think decentralization, while it appears to be, something that one would really talk about, it, based on my experience, it has created more of problems rather than, solutions. And I'll give you an instance for that. Let's look at the current trend. We have, is there a way that I can see all of them?
Yeah, all of us can see you.
Oh, okay. It's kind of weird just to look at your own screen. It's we are, and that's urbanism. We are social animals. We like to see people.
We like to see ourselves.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm looking.
Just looking. It's too much of a
So my
narcissist.
complete practice is based on that. We are social animals. If we don't travel, I will have no hotel.
Exactly, and that's good urbanism. Not being narcissist and looking at yourself. But anyway, I was coming to the whole decentralization thing. Now, I've worked in a lot of communities across in California, and I'm in places where what is critical for urbanization is density and scale. If I have to really talk about the moment you have density, it could be in a town, it could be in a village, and by density I mean it could be buildings, it could be public, it could be population, whatever it is. You have a very straightforward definition of urban, rural, and so on and so forth. The whole decentralization thing that we keep talking about, what that has led to, at least I can say Pune, Mumbai, and most of the places, is that the housing demand has gone up due to rapid urbanization. And because the demand has gone up, and as Cosima rightly mentioned, the real estate is very expensive, developers have gotten aggressive, and they have started acquiring cheaper land on the outskirts and because of which you have Gurugram and like all these different things, where rampant urbanization is happening. Now, the simple analogy I give is, when you're traveling, and if we have to pack a suitcase, if we just dump in our clothes, there is very little we can pack. But if we fold them neatly, we can get more things in there. I'm just dumbing down, something that I really want to say. By that nature, the moment we decentralize, what we end up getting is these enclaves, which are spread throughout. And what that means is that you need kilometers of infrastructure in the form of trunk lines, the electrical lines and, the roads, the sidewalks to service and, to be able to cater to all these diverse, decentralized communities. That leads to traffic congestion, that leads to, one-way commutes. And that is what has happened, in 60s and 70s when you look at US, when the freeway program was sort of unveiled. It created these, disparate and largely sprawled communities all across US cities, and that started to create the commute hours and so on and so forth. I see a similar trend happening into our communities. And while I understand the temptation to decentralize, I think it is very important what I call to do surgical interventions. You don't perform a surgery with a sword. You need the scalpels and you need like the small interventions and small equipments to do that. Similarly, if we are, let's say, in a city in the prime location, even if we have a 2 or 3 acre plot and let's say, Amin is doing a campus there, how does that campus integrate and create, a great, vibrant public realm is something that we can concern ourselves with. Because at one end, there is a public policy which will shape the whole debate on urbanism. And I'm very blunt about it. Unfortunately, we missed that bus. Post, independence, there should have been adequate importance which should have been given to the cities and the urbanization which should have been planned. A simple example I'll give is that, look at 1880s Paris. Something that was absolutely degraded with filthy open sewers and whatever happened, it took one Baron Haussmann to transform the Paris,
lines and,
with all the, interventions that he could do in 20 years. And, it's the most lovable city that we see today. So planning is something that requires really a long-term vision, a perseverance and a persistence to follow. And I say that is more at a public policy level, at a government level. Where we can make difference, we all are fellow professionals here, is that what we can do, to sort of make something that is, just an attractive street or, just a sidewalk or, let's say a retail storefront that we design, where, you could have this alfresco dining and people could sit and enjoy. So to me, there will always be a bigger debate. And we could spend countless hours talking about how the government has failed, and it has failed. And I'm not talking about this government, subsequent governments, all of them. There is a failure because there's very little attention we have paid to that. But at our level, there is a lot that we can do, to bring about that vibrancy and better public realm into our arena. For instance, resorts, what Cosima might be designing, I see that as small communities, as small city, in which you see everything. There's a shopping, there's, people living there, how they interact. There are public places and spaces. Same with the campuses that Amin might be designing. Even mere positioning and placement of buildings, the disposition, how we do that, and how do we create public places and spaces which are of interest, creates a great level of urbanism. And then, once we have these like little enclaves which are really responding well to the needs of people, they can be all weaved and interconnected together to form a larger whole. But I think we cannot shrug off our responsibility. But at the same time, I think there is a lot that also needs to happen on the public domain. And my personal biggest disappointment is this whole smart city thing. It's yielded nothing, not a zero. I mean, we need to have the cities and communities first, not the smart words. Forget that smart, dumb
We need to
lexicon.
have the fundamentals in place.
Later, we need sidewalks. We need, like he said, trees. We need basic, facilities and amenities, and wonderful. Like, I'll give an example of Rome. I mean, if you walk the streets of Rome, not a single tree you will find in the entire Rome, but it's an amazing, amazing urbanism. So what I'm saying is that basic facilities, how we position our buildings, how we create the spaces, that is a level of urban design that can be achieved by us at a professional level. And at a larger level, at a planning level, it's the authorities and the government and public outreach. In fact, I'm very optimistic. I'm very hopeful, because with the whole social media, and there would be a lot of youngsters at this forum listening to us, I think they need to put their creative skills, in being the direct critique of the kind of urbanism that exists in and around us. If you see a broken sidewalk or a street without a sidewalk, or some hideous building or something that is happening, just create an awareness about that, talk about that, engage with the officials, tag them, just these little simple things is what can come out of all this, I'm hoping. And we can start to take those baby steps, because if we keep talking about big moves, it's we've lost that bus, we've lost that momentum. We need to bring that energy back into the whole thing, and each one of us is responsible for that. I mean, I'm sorry, I could just go on and on and on. But let's
I
talk.
like your positive.
Maybe to the other panelists as well.
But you picked up a very interesting point, which is your the surgical intervention. The opportunity to be able to insert a small public building into an existing fabric.